Now your computer-aided designs can appear to come right out of your monitor thanks to Ashlar-Vellum. Ross Bishop showed Rainey this award-winning program.
Ross, let's have some fun today. You've brought along some 3D CAD software for us. Why don't you bring us up to speed with Ashlar-Vellum?
Thanks. Ashlar-Vellum is a new generation of CAD software. It's CAD design, drafting software. I say new generation for two reasons mostly. We have a new software intelligence that we've invented that we built into the product. It's called the Drafting Assistant. It's used to automate a lot of the real mundane tasks that go on in creating a drawing. Also, Ashlar has a lot of interface expertise that we've put together to generate a very intuitive, real nice interface. And so between those two things, Ashlar is a new kind of product. It's real revolutionary. Makes things real nice.
Technical professionals?
Yeah, design professionals. It's used largely, it was first created as a mechanical engineering tool.
Okay.
But it's been interesting because of the Drafting Assistant, because of the interface. A lot of other groups have really come to love Vellum. Groups such as industrial designers, technical illustrators, graphic designers, architects, facilities planners, site planners, people like that.
The people who invented the Voyager spacecraft, or the airplane that went around the Earth.
Yes, Burt Rutan is the designer of the Voyager aircraft. He loves Vellum. And it's people like that that really have come on.
Let's talk about horsepower.
Pretty much any Mac 2, the Quadras are, of course, your best choice.
Sure.
But the new Centris systems, any Mac 2 that has a math coprocessor.
So that's important. We need
got to have a math
FPU.
coprocessor. You want to have at least 4 megabytes of RAM. Of course, 8 megabytes is always better. Pretty much that's all it takes. Color is nice to have as well.
Let's see why this interface has been voted by the SPA as one of the best interfaces in the product.
Let's do. The big thing about Vellum, of course, again, is the Drafting Assistant. That is used to automate aligning and constraining things. Like when I get a horizontal line, it snaps automatically with no extra commands.
I see.
As I move up, I get a vertical line automatically. As I come back across, it also sees logical points such as this intersect, and it puts up all these words so I can see exactly what I've got.
So it's showing us the intersection of the y-axis here.
Yes, the x and the y and the perpendicular. So I can pick that point and then move up, and then all sorts of alignments become available to me. As I slide down, I get this alignment. As I slide across, I get an exact aligned horizontal line.
Oh, that's easy enough.
And then I can hold the Option key and temporarily get an arc tool, which happens constantly when you're doing a design. And I can slide right down and hit that intersect. Slide right across. Now I can make this line end right below the midpoint of this line just by going up, touching the midpoint, coming down that line, and there's that intersect.
Geez, that's
and then
easy.
I can slide down this line to that intersect. So these alignments, this snapping, all of this stuff happens automatically, and it makes the whole process real nice to work with. Now I'm actually going to join these two lines together to make sure they're exactly right with my corner trim tool, and 2 clicks, and I've got it exactly right. Another example of the Drafting Assistant is using the Smart Cursor to do a circle. So I can bring my circle in here, and to make a circle that's exactly centered, the Drafting Assistant will wake up the center for me. I can go right to that center, and I can pull a circle right on that point. And then you might notice that this circle down here has this diameter of 0.5 right now. Well, I might know it has to be 0.892 for whatever reason, and when I hit the Enter key, it resizes exactly as I've entered.
And as well as the XY, so we have our own sort of variables, whatever we want to choose for those.
Yes, you have the ability to do total numerical entry.
Okay.
Then I can use this alignment, and I can touch this point to get an alignment off of that, and put another circle right at this intersect. These construction lines come up because of the Drafting Assistant. Another good example is using the Drafting Assistant to make a line that's tangent between these two circles. I can get on this line and pull a line that's tangent, and it actually stays tangent. As I go and touch this circle, I get all kinds of options, such as tangent. And then same thing here, I could be on and tangent. And as long as I see the word tangent in both places, I know that that's exactly what I've got. Then using these two lines as the boundaries of a trim, I can cut off those two to get a nice tapered slot. So drawing this part is a real good example of how to use the Drafting Assistant and how fast it makes drawing a part like this and how precise you can be with your sketching. The other big thing that's real nice to show is the parametrics. Parametrics, in essence, is the ability to dimension a part with variables, put numbers into those variables, and let the computer reshape the part based on whatever you typed in.
I see. All right, let's get a view of that.
I'm going to bring out my dimension palette, and here's a little smart cursor that looks like a dimension tool, and I'm able to go in and click an endpoint and click a center, and I get a variable right there which I can move up. And I can make that be a variable by typing in, for example, an L.
Okay.
And then I could also, go ahead.
It said 3.205. Is that inches? Is that?
It can be inches, it can be metric, whichever you choose.
Good, okay.
Yes. Then I want to go from here to here, and I'd like to have this be L divided by 5.
So we can use equations then?
Yes, you can relate the variables together. The same thing here, I can do a height variable from here to here and make this be h, and perhaps a diameter over here and call this d1.
And we could continue around the
Yes.
whole drawing like that to come up with all
Yeah, we
types
can
of
finish
different-
all the dimensioning, which I've actually done here on another part. We won't save these changes.
Okay.
But here's an example of the part that's been completed with all the dimensions. And there's not much work we would have cut out by going on to this, but here's this part. So now all I got to do is select this part,
That's easy.
and then I go in and I say resolve. It comes up, and I have the opportunity to type in values here, and I can type in whatever I want. I've already filled in these values, and then I just say OK. And it completely reshapes the part. I can go up and I can say zoom all, and there's my part. Now with the part here, the way this is, I have the ability to do what if. I could also select it again and change the value for D1 again and make this larger. So you can do new families of parts with a single design.
What if scenarios?
Yes.
So not only are you shortening the design process, okay, by getting rid of pencils and rulers and everything else, but changes to that design process
Yes.
can be
Yes.
made very quickly and easily.
And quick iterations to design. Yes.
Yeah.
It's very nice to use. The other thing that you can do is things like, if I want to put the actual numerical values back in here, I have a little thing called a selection mask, which lets me quickly select all the dimensions by saying, give me all the blue things, ignore everything else. And now when I say select all, it selects the dimensions.
Okay, by turning them red. in
Then
this
I
case.
can edit those dimensions and say, I want to put the real number in the text box. So I put a little number sign, and it replaces all the variables with actual numerical, the measured numerical values.
Based on the values that we did give it. That's
Exactly.
amazing, Ross. What would you say the learning curve on a product like Ashlar-Vellum is here?
Typically, people are doing real work like this in their first day, sometimes
Yeah.
their first morning. In a week, people are very comfortable and very good with the product.
You have a tutorial that ships with this. In fact, some of what you're doing here actually is with the tutorial,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes, exactly. And then there's some nice things too. Like here I have 1.188, 1.188. If I go in and select this point, and if I make changes to my design just by moving it,
Oh, I see. That was easy
the
enough.
numbers update as well. So I have associative dimensioning, and I can go in and drag a design as such, and all my numbers will update. I also have undo. In fact, I can undo a couple of times. I can undo as many as 8 steps to back out to, again, for changing and design freedom.
So I guess the next thing then, we're working in a 2D plane, but let's take advantage of some of the 3D aspects of
Good.
this application.
Yes, this is one of the unique things about Vellum is how easy it is to move into the 3D world from being comfortable with the 2D world. If I say, give me all the black stuff and ignore everything else, so now when I say select all, it selects all the black things.
I
Now,
see.
I can change my view here from a top view to like an isometric view.
Hey,
So
look at that.
It slants it off to the
Yeah,
side.
okay.
And then I can extrude this. Now I can take all those black lines and I can extrude them by pulling down, and it'll fill in a value for me along the z-axis, and I can say OK, and I get depth to all those lines. Okay. So now I also have a unique feature here, which is called the trackball. And with this trackball, it is just like it looks. I can grab this and I can rotate the part around in 3D space
That's
and look
amazing.
at it however I might want
It's
to
so
look.
easy to do. I mean, it's just call it the trackball and go to it, and you can do that with all your other views, it seems.
I can
here.
also change and say, well, show me the right side view or show me the top view again, whatever I would want to do.
Very important for those intricate designs. I can imagine people who design aircraft or automobile race cars, for instance, as this product is being used for,
Yes.
taking advantage of that.
Very much so. Then the other most common 2D, 3D thing that you would do is a rotate. So I'm going to divide these top objects here into 2 pieces,
Okay.
and then I'm going to rotate them. So I'm going to revolve this. Now when I use the revolve command, it asks for an axis of revolution, so I can just say, all right, well, let's go 180 degrees with 8 steps and give it an axis of revolution from this endpoint to this endpoint. And again, the drafting assistant fills in all these for me, and I say OK, and I get a dome shape just on
Just
top
like
of my
that.
part.
Easy enough.
Yeah. And then the final thing you would want to do is make a 2D print of this with a title block and border and whatnot. And we can do that with a single command called Sheet into View. I can pick the command. I can ask for a B-size drawing with 4 views.
Now, what's
And-
all those different layouts? Take a look at that again for me, would you? Well, how would we? What are those familiar to draftsmen?
Yes,
is that the
this is
idea?
like 8.5 by 11,
Gotcha.
and then 11 by
Okay.
17, and so on. And then 4 views with a title block and border format, and I could pick a scale of, for example, 0.5. And when I do this, I say OK, and then I say zoom all, and I've got my top, front, right side views with an isometric and my title block and border, and I'm ready to add the rest of my dimensions and send it to the shop.
Well, that's really amazing, Ross. Let's talk a bit about printers, though. How would those come into play here?
Yes, Ashlar will support any of the printers that you can load into the chooser, any selectable printer, laser printers, desk jets, inkjets, also all the plotters, pen plotters and whatnot.
That makes a lot of sense for this particular category, obviously.
Got to have a plotter.
Yeah. I mentioned one award up top, but you've won a couple of others as well.
Yes, we won the Mac User Editor's Choice Award for Best CAD Package, and we also won the Editor's Choice Award for Most Significant CAD Product.
Amazing. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming by and giving us a clue as to what 3D CAD software is all about.
It's great for me.
Alrighty.
Thanks.
Computer-aided designs can now come to life with the help of Ashlar-Vellum. Ross Bishop demonstrated this award winner for us.
Ross, in other segments of MacTV, we've seen great overviews of Ashlar-Vellum. Now, in this particular segment, though, you're going to show me some really unique stuff. Tell me about it.
Yes, in this segment, what we're going to do is take a look at usage for our integrated parametrics, which is one of our major features.
Okay, what are parametrics?
Parametrics is the ability to dimension a part with variables and then put dimensions that put values into those variables and let the computer reshape the part depending on what you typed in.
Okay.
And then go beyond that, and we can make a movie out of that so you can visualize how your part will move.
Concept visualization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's bring the rest of the viewers up to speed, though. Tell us first a little bit about Ashlar-Vellum.
Yes. Ashlar-Vellum is a new generation of CAD software. It's an engineering design software. It's got some major differentiating features where it has a software intelligence that we built in that we actually invented called the drafting assistant, and that acts to automate a lot of the things that you do in a real mundane way in creating a drawing. So we make the creation of a drawing much quicker, more accurate, a lot more fun.
Okay.
And then with the parametrics, and then with a real intuitive interface that we really worked hard on, it makes Vellum a very revolutionary tool, a very nice tool to use.
Let's see this specific element of Ashlar-Vellum right now.
This is an example of what Vellum looks like when it's up. We have the toolbar on the left, and in the toolbar you have pop-out subpalettes for each of the tool categories.
I see.
Of course, all your pull-down menus along the top. A message line to tell you what to do step by step, and then at the bottom of the screen you have numerical entry places so you can type in values to create geometry. What we're going to do here is generate a little shape, and we've got a triangle here. Ignore the things at the bottom for a moment and focus on this triangle. And this is a parametric shape that has a variable A. And we can go in and we can resolve this variable A and resolve the shape by typing in some value like 94. Some number you might want A, this angle, to be, fix it at this point and say OK, and it reshapes the triangle based on whatever you typed in here.
Great.
So using that kind of a functionality, I can undo this and get it back to where it was, and I can associate some grouped geometry or some objects with this. I can pick this part, and with my move tool and with the aid of the drafting assistant, I can come in and I can grab the center, and I see the word center, and I can grab that center and drag it up and place it right on this endpoint. So it's the drafting assistant, that automated intelligence, that helps me do this. And then I can pick this one and not that one, and I do the same thing. I can grab this center, and I can bring it up and put it right on this endpoint. And then in the same final fashion, I can take this center here and put it right on that endpoint. Oh, I didn't select it, so you've got to make sure you select it.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's the center, and there's the endpoint. So really what we've done is we've created a little piston that's based on this triangular shape that we had to begin with.
Now those shapes that you dragged up there, Ross, those were also created within Ashlar-Vellum.
Yes, and they were done very simply using all the tools that we have here.
I can see the draftsmen licking their chops already here. Yeah.
Now it gets better. So now I'm going to set up a viewing frame. I'm going to kind of zoom in here with a command I call a stroke zoom, get a nice viewing frame.
All right.
And then I'm going to select all, and then I'm going to do a movie, but I'm going to record this movie. So what I do is I tell it I want to take that variable A, and I want to start at 0, and I want to end at 350, and go at steps of 10 degrees. So do a resolve at 10, one at 20, one at 30, all the way around the circle to 360 degrees.
I see.
And I won't have any changes here. So I just say I also want to fix a point, so I want to fix this point right here, and then I say OK. And I give it a name. I'll call it Piston Movie, and I'm just going to call this .1 and save it.
Now we should point out for the viewers that who may not know, this is not a QuickTime movie, certainly. This is
exactly.
Yeah.
This is a movie within Vellum based on the Parametric Engine.
Gotcha.
So now this goes around and creates this movie, but we don't have to actually wait for this. I'm going to stop this, and I've already done a finished movie. So I'm going to bring it up, and I say Movie, Play, when it's all finished. And here's my original piston movie that I did create, and I open that. And it brings it into this little viewing window here, and then I can just play the movie. And it strips out the dimensions, and so you can have your actual moving part. Now I can stop this, and I can go forwards and backwards one frame at a time, and I can make it go slower. So you can control the speeds of this and whatnot.
I call this concept visualization at the top, but you have another term.
We tend to refer to this as mechanism animation.
Amazing.
Because you can have fairly complex mechanisms that have different types of related variables and see how that motion looks.
What you're really doing, let's take a look at a couple other movies if we can.
Let's do.
What you're really doing is cutting down the design time, aren't you? The whole design process that used to take hours for a draftsman at a table, for instance. That's the only scenario I can think of at the moment, but there are a lot of other ones. And
the idea of being able to create a design quickly and then see how that design will behave.
Sure.
Like here's an example with some valves and a piston, all based off of a single rotational variable in the center there. And so that's just a simple linkage that was created in Vellum. Another good example, which is actually a much more complicated type of movement, is the Wankel Engine. Here's just a real simple schematic representation of a Wankel engine.
Okay.
And that's a complex thing to try to visualize, but with this tool and a single variable, again, a rotational variable in the center, you can get this kind of design.
Sure.
And see what it's going to do.
Very powerful. This particular application, Ashlar-Vellum, this has won some awards, hasn't it, aside from its intuitive interface?
Absolutely. We won the Mac User Editor's Choice Award for Best New CAD Package. We also won the honorable mention for Most Significant Software Product of the Year.
Terrific. Let's take a look at a couple more movies, and thanks for coming by and being on MacTV.
You bet. Thanks.
Whether you're a professional architect or you just want to plan an addition to your house, Ashlar-Vellum's Smart Walls feature can be a big help. Ross Bishop and Rainey took a look at how it works.
Ross, other segments on MacTV have dealt with overviews and other special features involved with Ashlar-Vellum. Tell us first what you're going to show us today with the product.
Okay, today we're going to look at Ashlar-Vellum as an architectural tool, doing floor plan layouts and whatnot.
Bring us up to speed. Architects obviously can use this. Other target markets?
Sure. Ashlar is primarily a mechanical engineering, a design tool for people doing technical design, technical illustration, things like that, architecture and facilities management, people using it for those kinds of things.
Okay. We're running on a Quadra today, but you can use this on most Macs.
Yes, pretty much any Mac 2 has a math coprocessor and between 4 and 8 megabytes of RAM.
Let's have a look then.
Okay, good. This is Vellum as the screen looks when it comes up. You have along the left side all your tool palettes and pop out sub-tools of each of the different tool categories. Along the top you have a message line that tells you what to do step by step, and along the bottom we have the ability to enter from the keyboard numerical parameters. So what we're going to do today is use our Smart Wall tool, which is a real special tool for creating architectural layouts. The biggest thing about Vellum in terms of a nice feature is a thing called the Drafting Assistant, which automates alignments, such as this horizontal. As soon as I get near horizontal, it happens automatically.
Great.
The same thing happens at 45, and the same thing happens at 90. So I don't have to hunt or do extra commands. Those things just happen. Now the Smart Wall tool is real nice because when I pull down a second line, notice in the message line up at the very top, clear up here, it says Shift equals flip. So that means if I hold the Shift key, the wall will flip inside or outside. But the nice thing about the Smart Wall is if I leave it outside, when I release the mouse, that corner cleans up automatically.
It did, yeah. Okay. That's
and
great.
as I do another one, why that corner will clean up. If I do like a 45-degree miter, that will clean up. If I come into a T, that cleans up. These Smart Walls are very nice so then I can just quickly latch in a part, skip for a doorway, come across. And because of the automatic aligning of the Drafting Assistant and the intelligence of the Smart Wall, I can just very quickly go in and lay out. I can hold the Shift key, flip that to the other side, and just get a very quick layout. It will even do such bizarre things that for some reason I put in some strange wall like this.
Okay. Wow.
It heals all of those. And then if I were to delete that wall, they
Right,
all
right.
heal as well.
Yeah.
So this is why we call it a smart wall tool. It makes it really nice to just lay things out. And for changes, if I say, well, you know, this hallway really kind of ought to be over here, everything heals.
Great, yeah.
Now, we go a step beyond this. We have a deal where we can bring in a symbol. It's any architectural symbol. These symbols all come with vellum, by the way.
All right.
These are special symbols. This is a single door. But notice it has the ability to enter values. These are what we call parametric symbols. So with a single door symbol, I've covered every possible variation of that door. So I say, all right, well, it's a 55-degree angle for the opening. We know our wall is 6 inches wide, and let's do a 28-inch door, and let's put it right there. And when I say OK, it goes in, and it also cuts the wall.
Wow.
So I have a smart wall in my door symbol. And then I can take this thing, and you'll notice at the top it says option equals copy. So if I come in and grab this thing and hold my option key, I can move a copy over to there.
That easy then.
And then with my mirror tool, I could take this and say, well, let's put the hinge on the other side. And it flips it over. Let's put a window in. I can go to my symbol menu, and let's get out of the doors and go into the windows.
Yeah, we've got windows. Okay, doors, windows.
The architectural ones, we mostly provided doors and windows.
Sure.
We find that people want to create their own for most of their other usages. So I've got a bay window here, and again, it's parametric. We've got a 6-inch wall. Let's do a 65-inch window, and let's put it off the side. Let's put it on this angular wall, so I can insert here and indicate a direction by dragging and placing it, and then say, OK. And it puts it right on that wall as well.
Very powerful.
Yes, very nice for creating very quick sketching of your architectural floor
I can
plan.
imagine if we were an architect designing houses all day long, you could save sets of houses very easily.
Yes.
Go in a creative role, as they say. There's other applications, smaller applications that do just this. We should point out that Ashlar-Vellum contains many other features we haven't seen today, right?
This is a small feature. And this is something that people do in office layouts. Just really love dividers and partitions and desks and stuff. To lay those office stuff out is so quick and easy.
Now tell me a little bit about the printing options available once we've created our design.
Yeah, you have the ability, Vellum supports any Apple printer. That would be anything available in the chooser, color printers, laser printers, and even pen plotters if you're doing larger prints.
Great, large offices, whatever it may
Exactly.
be. Well, thanks for coming by and showing me the Smart Wall tool.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Now we're going to do the Ashlar-Vellum wedge die 3D scripted demo. Before you do a demo, the first thing to do is talk about a couple of topics that are important to set the demo correctly for the viewing audience. The first topic has to do with 3D itself, and the second topic has to do with Vellum. Regarding 3D itself, there's two basic worlds of 3D. There's one world which I call visualization 3D, which is where you have an environment where you're going to do rendering and shadowing and ray tracing and animation and presentation types of visualization 3D. The other world that you would have is a world of manufacturing 3D. That's where you're doing a design to get a blueprint so that you can get something built. And it's the manufacturing world of 3D that Vellum is all about. Excuse me. So with those two things in mind, it's important to place that information so that the viewing audience can understand where Vellum sits in regards to the worlds of 3D that are available. The other thing about Vellum 3D is the fact that it's so easy to learn because Vellum 3D is the same program as Vellum 2D was, with just the simple addition of a 3D menu item. And I'm going to move my cursor over to the 3D menu, and if you pull down this menu, you'll notice that it's a very simple menu. In fact, the first few items of the menu have to do with views. You have view, you see the word view over and over again. So the first section is all view commands. The second section all has to do with planes, because you see the word plane several times throughout there, and there's some other things. And so the second section is all plane information, and then at the very bottom you have extrude and revolve. So the point here is that most of the information and most of the tools and commands for the 3D are already existing in the tool palette that you've already been using in Vellum 2D and in the menu bar. So there's really very little to learn when you're learning the 3D because you already know the 2D. So everything's already the same. There's only one new concept, and that is the concept of a work plane. And if you've ever used anybody's 3D, then you know how that comes into play, and then you only need to learn how we do it. So let's look at Vellum 3D. Let's see what this is like. The first thing to do is to go to the 3D menu and ask to show the triad. And this brings this little marker over here, which is an origin marker, which shows the reference planes. You'll see that in a moment. And then what I will do is I'm going to pick the connected line tool. And using the connected line tool, I would just begin to draw a simple rectangle. So as always with Vellum, you have your construction lines that the drafting assistant provides. And I can sketch out the beginnings of a rectangle. And I could come up to this point and get my intersect, but I'm not going to click this point. This is how I would work in 2D. But let's do the same process in 3D. I will go to the 3D menu and change my view. Instead of being at top, I will change the view to be trimetric. And you see that the rectangle has laid down, and also notice over here that the triad has changed. Now what this shows, this line here is the x-axis, this line is the y-axis, and then this little line is the z-axis. So this is a little reference plane indicator, and then the little broken line here indicates the work plane, which is laying flat on the bottom. Now if I come back down to my shape here, notice that I have the same exact intersect that I had before, except now it's working from a 3D view. So I can click that point and then move over and click that point. Now I'm actually going to scroll down a little bit so that I can see my part a little better. Now notice, here's what the next important point is, that at this point you see an alignment with the z-axis. So this is the drafting assistant working in the third axis, or the z-axis. So now I can come up and use the drafting assistant to get alignments in that third axis. Now I can come back in this direction and I get a line Y. Now I want this line to end right above the midpoint of this line. So I find that midpoint, and without clicking I just touch, and here's a Z alignment, and then I can come up and get that. So I will click there, and I can come back down the Z axis, and I will click right here, and then I can come across the Y axis, and my mouse is sticking, and I will come right to that point. Now here I can go, I could go on down and finish out, and what I'm making is the side of an L bracket. But really what I want to do is go across now. So I can do an alignment like this, and here I have just the ability now to sketch loosely in 3D, and the drafting assistant gives me alignments in all three axes. So I can just pick out these points freely. And I'll actually go down now and finish the point right here. Okay. Now I will draw a single line segment over on this end. And then I'm going to change tools. I'm going to go and get the single line tool. And actually I don't even need to do that. Every line is available for me there. If I pick the selection arrow, I can take this line, and then I'm going to hold the option key, because option equals copy, and I can grab this and move a copy to there. And then I can pick this line and move a copy with the option key to there, and move another copy to there, and a third one to there. So now I've finished a rough outline of an L-shaped bar, and that would be the initial layout of my design. The next thing I want to show you is that there's a new feature now called the Trackball. So I bring out this little device called a Trackball, and I can take this, and this is on a moving pallet, so I can move this device out of the way somewhere off to the side. And this trackball allows me to rotate the part then and see that it is 3D. I can just grab this and spin my design in my three-dimensional viewing space. Okay, so that is truly a 3D wireframe design. Now from here I can immediately, I also have the ability to change views. I could pick the right side view or the top view, it doesn't matter. I will actually now though go back to the trimetric view. Now this is a three-dimensional design tool, so I have the ability to make many modifications of my design. Like I could draw a fence around this part, and I could slide this part down and make it longer along the top. Or I could pick just the top line and slant this whole thing like this. So I have many design choices, and the drafting assistant gives me the ability to work freely in those kinds of ways. But what I want to do is I actually have the ability to do an undo, and we know that Vellum has 8 levels of undo, so I'm actually going to back out both of those steps. Now I want to go down here and I want to select some points and make an actual modification that I do need to do for my design. Select those 2 points in this, and I need to make this bottom part a little thicker, so I'm going to slide this up. And then I need to take this end and I need to pull it back, because I need I've decided for my design I need a sloped face there. The next thing that I want to do is put a contour along this face and along the top, and it's going to be a fairly complex contour. Now to do that I will go over and get the connected line tool and pull the connected line tool down. Now using the stroke zoom, which is with the command key, I get the cloverleaf symbol and I can stroke zoom into this area. And then what I want to do is go in and begin some lines right here. So I'm going to drag a line, and notice it says align 45. So I do want to go along that 45-degree angle, which is flat along the bottom, and then I will come across along the x-axis. And then I know that if I hold the option key, I temporarily get the arc tool, and I can pull an arc along a 45-degree line, which gives me a quarter circle arc. And then I can pull this a little ways and then go into this corner to end this. So here I have a contour that I can use. Now what I want to do is take that up along this face. So what I will do is go up and pick, I need to do a zoom all. So I say zoom all. Now I'm going to take this contour and I'm going to extrude it along this face. So I go to the 3D menu, since my contour is selected, and I will say extrude. Now I get this box. Now this is one of the first really nice things about Vellum, is first of all I can move this box, and I'm going to move it out of the way. What I want to do is extrude from this point to this point, but I'm not sure how far that is. In fact, it just so happens that I do know that it's in the z-axis, but if I didn't know, it might be very difficult for me to fill the proper numbers into the proper boxes here. But because of this asterisk, and this is something that occurs throughout Vellum, that asterisk, and I'm going to go up to the title bar here, and it says use the cursor to enter the values. So all I know is that I want to extrude from here to here, and notice that it filled in 1.536, and when I say OK, then my extrusion happens automatically. Now I'm going to pick my arrow tool and select these 5 lines that are, or these 5 objects at the top of my contour, and I'm going to rotate those around this line as an axis. So I'm going to sweep it, or in this case we use the word revolve. So I'm going to revolve those objects, and again this box I can move out of the way. Now here I know it's easy to see that I want a 90-degree rotation, so I can type a 90, and rather than 8 I only want 4 steps. But these 6 boxes, I really don't have any idea what numbers I need to put in there, but I don't need to, again, because of this asterisk. So what I can do is go in with my cursor and just define the axis of revolution by saying that it is from here to there. And notice these numbers, there's no way I could have filled those in correctly like that. And then I say OK, and there it is. So my revolve happens automatically also. So now I'm going to pick the same 5 objects that are on the end of the revolve and do a final extrude, and extrude these across the top. Now I'll move my trackball and move it out over here, and then just go in and define my extrude to be from here to here, and then go say OK, and that happens automatically. So now I will do another zoom all so that we can see this. And there's my, complex contour that's been taken across my part. Now because of this, it actually turns out there's some lines here that I don't need anymore, such as that one, and that one, and that one. I don't need those lines anymore, so I'm going to delete those with the delete key. The next thing, and we could rotate this if we wanted to and see it as a 3D shape. Okay, But I'm actually going to go, and for example, if you did have some special view that you particularly like, a viewing angle, you can go in and define that as a view. Here's all my default views, and I can go in and just say New, and then say OK. And I have a new view called View 1, which I can refer to from now on. So I could go back to the right side view, and I could go back to View 1. But I will continue to work in the trimetric view. Okay, the next thing I want to do is, first I will put this away. I want to put a hole on the face, on the right side face of this. To do that, first I need to change my work plane, because if I were to draw a circle right now, the circle would lay down flat because my work plane is flat on the bottom. So I need to change my work plane. The way that I do that is to go to my 3D menu and go to the Planes command. Now right now I can see that the top is the active plane, so what I need to do is change it to right. And notice that my triad has changed to indicate that the work plane is now with the proper orientation. So I pick the circle tool, and I come over, and because of the drafting assistant I can find the midpoint, and I get a construction line off of that, and I'm going to find a midpoint along this face, and there's a construction, and there's an intersect of those two midpoints, and then I can just pull a circle right on that face. Now I want to extrude that through, but before I do that I'm going to go up to the Arrange menu and divide that circle into 4 arcs, and I'm not going to show the points. And this I will do, that will help me when I do the extrude, it will make it look better. So I go to Extrude, and again, I don't know the exact number that I need. All I know is that I need to extrude from here, press the mouse, to this point right here, and again my mouse is sticking, which it really, there we go. That's the point I want right there. And the proper number goes in, and then I say OK. And the hole goes through. Okay, the next thing to do is I want to work on this sloped face now, and what I want to do is put a hexagon on this sloped face. So to work here I need to make the work plane match this face. I need to change it so the triad matches that face. Well, this is some arbitrary sloped face. I don't know the angle or anything. But I don't need to. But I do need to define a new plane. So I go here, and I could say define plane, but in this case there's an easier way. I could say 3-point plane, because I know 3 points on this plane. Certainly here's one, and here's another, and then this would be a third. And notice that my triad has changed to match the slope of that face. So now I'm working right on that face, so I can go and I can pick one of my polygon tools, and this will work with a hexagon, and that's fine. Here I can touch a midpoint and I get a line X, touch a midpoint and I get a line Y, which you can't read there, but that's what that says because the work plane is flat to X and Y there. Go to the intersect and pull hexagon right on that face. Now I want to extrude that hexagon perpendicular to that face. So while it is selected there, I can go up and I can say extrude, and I get this box. And all I need to do really is just grab one of the points and pull, but I need to be careful about what I see, because as I move around here I see a line Z, but as I move more I might see other things such as tangent or other angles. But what I really do want is to see a line Z, because that means I have now moved perpendicular to the plane. So the drafting assistant makes it so that I can do this 3D operation without ever changing angles or planes or view location or anything. I can just work. So I do that and I get the proper number and I say OK, and it extrudes that. Now of course it went too far, but I did that on purpose. Let's go now and look at the right side view. And what I want to do now is I want to trim this off so that these lines end right at this bottom line. And this is one of the nice things about vellum, is that you can actually simulate trimming to surfaces by an operation such as this. I will go get my selection tool, and I want to pick this line as the boundary of a trim. Go get my trim tool, and then cut off. There's 2 lines at each location here, so I need to click twice. And I've now trimmed those exactly to that line. I'm going to scroll down, and we can see that I don't need this anymore, so I will go up and select this and delete it with the delete key. And then go back to my trimetric view, and there I see the shape. Now, of course, these lines end exactly like they were ending on the plane, so I just have lines. I'm going to bring out my trackball briefly. I'm going to work on the ends of these lines, and so to do that I want to go in and rotate my model a little bit. So I'm going to use my trackball to rotate just a little bit so that I can see all of those lines. And I will go up now and pick my connected line tool. Well, I don't need to pull out, but there it is. And come down and just click on each of those points. So I get an end point at each end. Now this is a perpendicular pull, that's fine. And I just go to each end point all the way around, and I know that I've hit all 6 lines. And I can finish off that hexagon at the bottom. So really, this is my finished part then. I could even look at it from the view that I defined before. But we'll leave it at the trimetric view. And then we will go and say zoom all. So here's a simple wedge die part that we've designed actually fairly quickly. By doing what we've done here, you've gotten to see a lot of the fundamentals of vellum. First of all, the ability to sketch freely in 3D space, and then to move and mold and change the shape that you've laid out by stretching things, and then the ability to define a contour and then extrude it and revolve it, work with sloped faces and change the work plane and define new views. So many of the fundamentals of vellum are presented in this demo. This is actually only half the story, though, because certainly we want the ability, and we provide you the ability to design in 3D, but the purpose of vellum is to get you to a 2D production drawing of your 3D design. That's what it's all about, so that's what we want to do next. I'm going to close my trackball. And the nice thing about vellum is that it only takes a single command to get a 4-view drawing of this part automatically. So all I will do is go to the Views menu, and here's a command it has been here, and you will use it now, called Sheet into View. You give this command and you get this dialog box that comes up. This is a pop-up menu that gives you many choices. These are user definable, and you can create your own view formats. The one I'm going to select will be this one. This indicates that it will be a B-size drawing, that it will have a title block format, so it will have a border and a title block, and it will have 4 views. Now I happen to know that for the purposes of this demo I need to use a scale of 0.75, and then if I hit the OK button, vellum goes off and calculates what I just asked for and places it. And to see the whole thing, I say zoom all. And I wind up with a top, front, and right side view of my part laid out on a drawing with a title block and border. Now you could have your own logo here, you can have whatever you want. Now some interesting things about this. I can bring the trackball out again. Here's my trackball, and we'll place it over here. Now I can click on a view to make it active, and I can actually rotate that view. And I can click on a different view and rotate this view. So these are all actually views of my model, so I can make these be whatever. But let's make this one stay the right, and let's make this one stay as top. That's how they should be. How about something odd like maybe I would want a view that looks right along at this face. That's, as you would call, a projected view, one of those high school drafting nightmare problems. I would want a projected view of this sloped face. All I do is select the view and go up and say unfold view. Then I just simply go in and drag from endpoint to indicate a fold line. When I do this, another view is created. Vellum just places it, projected correctly, and puts it on top of everything else, which is actually okay because I can click on that view and move it off to the side. Okay? Now the other things I can do with this view, let's say that it's too big, I could go to the properties and actually change the scale of this to half of what it was, make it 0.375, makes it much smaller. Then I can go in and pan this view. I get a little hand that I can drag this little part and put it up in the corner, and then I can actually shrink the view down to size and pull this down in here. So I have excellent view manipulation that goes along with this. The next thing I might want to do would be, what if I made a change in my design? I could select an area of this, like for example the whole right side of my part, and notice that it highlights in all of the views. And then if I go and grab and let go, the same modification appears in all of the views. So you can design in these views if you want to and continue to do your work. I think for this I will choose to say undo and not do that one. The next thing that would be important to see would be the ability to dimension. I can go in and bring out my dimension palette. And here's the dimension palette that I've always had, and I can put this anywhere. I could pick my vertical dimension tool, and I could dimension from this endpoint to this endpoint. Now it's not important that we read that. The thing that is important to see is that this dimension object did not appear in the other views. These views are smart. They know that you're only supposed to dimension in one view at a time, so they only work in one view. They ignore the dimension object in the other views, so that's good. So I could go through and dimension this object to my heart's content, go across the bottom, and I could put in all my dimensions and all my annotation and complete the drawing in that way. And then really the only thing that's left to do is to get ready to print the drawing. I would close everything away, and I would say, first I will go over here and turn off the triad. I will hide the triad. Now when I really want a good finished drawing, I will probably want to make this a hidden line removal or a hidden line drawing. I want to hide the hidden lines. The process in Vellum is you certainly have the ability to do that, but it's a manual process. So the bad news is it's manual. But the good news is that you've got the best trim tools on the planet to do it with, and that actually becomes an advantageous situation in many cases. So let's see what it's like to trim this part and prepare a drawing. All you do is you select the view, and then you say flatten view. Now flatten view disassociates the model, disassociates the view from the model, and places the geometry on the sheet. So when I say OK, it will basically unhook this geometry from the rest of the model, and now it's not in a view anymore. So I can work here without affecting my other views. So using my stroke zoom, I'm going to stroke in on this and get a zoom so it fills the screen. And I can now begin to work right on this part. So really the first step of this is just, we know there's a bunch of lines that I don't need. There's some lines hidden there, and there's lines back behind that I can just go through and select and delete them. So using the Shift key, I can click on many lines at once and make them all go away and make this process actually go very quickly. Now our hole is not quite big enough. We're not quite going to see through this, which is unfortunate, but that's the view that we've chosen, and I could have changed that, but that's the way it goes this time. So I will delete many of these lines, and I actually see that there's some here that I want to get rid of. And when I hit the delete key, those go away, and I've got a few stragglers. And because of this, there's just really only one line I need to trim, and I need to pick that and trim that off. Sure.
Let me tell you when this dark. Okay. Go.
So this particular case happened to be very easy to trim, and sometimes it is that way. But with these trim tools, it's a very simple process. And then you would just go in, turn off your view boundaries, and you have a completed drawing of your design ready to go in really a matter of minutes. And that's a quick rundown on Ashlar-Vellum 3D.